Here at Helmuth Ford, we are a small town dealership with no hassle and no pressure.
Welcome to this edition of Morgan You Asked For podcast, January 22nd, about 9 o'clock on a Wednesday. The Hawks scored at halftime here. Got it on here. The Hawkeye women are up 50-26 over Washington. Impressive showing of offense considering I believe they only scored 49 points last game total, right? Am I
Yeah,
right that or
it was
wrong?
49 points. They've really been on the struggle bus. So it's a breaking point in the season. They've got to start getting some W's racked up because they're on their way to the NIT right now. So they they got to get some wins going here. And a good first half for the Hawkeyes.
Yeah, and then Iowa State women tonight did beat BYU pretty handily. They were up by around 20. I don't know if it finished there, but around 20 most of the game. So as of right now, good night for the women, who's both of them have struggled a little bit compared to maybe what expectations were and just what everybody thought they would be, maybe a little bit. Let's move on to, the story of the hour, the story of the week, story of the month, the NFL playoffs. Last weekend with the 4 games, is that the best weekend, or is it this upcoming weekend what it truly is to go to the Super Bowl? The only problem with this weekend, there is only 2 games. It's just Sunday, but last weekend, 2 games, both days, all NFL, all pretty good games. They weren't all just great games, but pretty good games, ending with obviously the best game of the weekend, the most competitive game, and the one that they thought would be the best. And Lamar and Josh Allen did not disappoint. Ravens and Bills just do what they do. They're really, really good. And the Bills got that one, and now they're going to get their chance to go take down the Chiefs again.
Yeah, for me, this weekend's the best weekend because everything's on the line. I know there's more games. Some people like divisional weekend the best. I like championship weekend just because of, like I said, the stakes. If you win, you go to the Super Bowl. If you lose, it's about as devastating as it gets, in my opinion, for the fans. I've been on the right end and the wrong end as a Packers fan, a Brett Favre fan with the Vikings a few times. So to me, this is the best weekend. But all the games were really, all the games were pretty good. There was some drama in each of them, plenty of storylines. If we just want to kind of go in order, we could start with the Chiefs and the refs and that whole mess. But everyone's complained about the refs. It was just a couple calls and then a non-call because Mahomes flopped and people were upset about that. But the Texans played a pretty terrible game, giving up all those sacks, the special teams blunders, the opening play of the game. Guy takes his helmet off, thought he made a great play. He didn't, then goes and pushes his coach. I mean, when teams play the Chiefs, they're just not buttoned up or they lose their minds in a way. It's what it seems like. So regardless of those calls, I think the Chiefs were still going to win that game either way.
Yeah, the Chiefs, and you're 100% right. The Chiefs right now in the situation where they don't have to do anything outstanding. I mean, unfortunately, they're like the Patriots 10 years ago, where other teams feel like they have to do so much more to beat them that most teams can't handle it. And they freak, like you just said, they freak out. They do things that are abnormal for their team. Now, teams are starting to go for it more, but teams go for a 4th down maybe when they shouldn't because they think they have to score a touchdown. Now, the Chiefs are a much different team than they were 3 years ago where you did feel like you had to outscore them. This is not that team, but you try to almost do too much. You just have to play a good football game. The Chiefs are not so much better than everybody else like a couple years ago. I think a couple years ago they were just better than everybody else. I don't think that is the case. Now, they have the best quarterback, they have the best coach, and then those 2 guys make everybody around them. And as long as the mistakes aren't made, they're going to win every game. But you just can't make the simple mistakes. Mistakes happen in football. That's really what, if you break down football, it's when the ball is snapped, it's a series of 11 people making mistakes, and who makes the least mistakes. I mean, that's the game of football in a nutshell. And right now, the Chiefs have an eraser in Patrick Mahomes, and Josh Allen is that way. Lamar Jackson is that way. Jalen Hurts is that way if he's healthy, which we're going to talk about that, but that's a big question mark. And then Jaden Daniels is very much that way. So the 4 quarterbacks that are left can erase mistakes as good as anybody in the league, and that's why those teams are still playing.
Yeah, for the Chiefs, I mean, we've joked about it before. Their season officially has begun. This past weekend, that was their last preseason game. The Chiefs' season's only 2 games long. Everybody else plays 17 to 21 games. So here they are, 7 straight AFC Championship games. The Arrowhead Invitational, as Nick Wright likes to call it. But I do agree.
Unfortunately, he's right.
Yeah,
someone else just needs to win games.
Troy Aikman was right on that call, though. They've got to get some of these penalties cleaned up, and the roughing the passer. My biggest thing is, there was a couple that were questionable, and they do have to get that fixed. But that wasn't the reason the Texans lost. And I almost wonder going into next season if the NFL can look at a rule where each team gets 1 reviewable call a game on a quarterback hit if there's a penalty. And if you lose the call, if it's not overturned, you don't lose a timeout, but every team gets 1 of those where they can go back and look. Now, I know that slows the game up a little bit, so that is an issue that the NFL doesn't want to have. They want to keep the games going at a reasonably fast pace. But no, that's not the reason the Texans lost, though, at the end of the day.
No, I mean, by the letter of the law, the one where he went high and got him, that was a correct call. Now, we can all make the argument where I don't think it's roughing the passer, as just in general sense of what we all think of roughing the passer. But by the letter of the law, that was correct. Now, the one where here's what happens more than anything on those plays. If you look, did they hit Mahomes? Probably. But those 2 guys hit each other way harder than they hit Mahomes. And that happens a lot. And I watch a lot of football, college and the NFL. And I don't know, the NFL doesn't have the targeting rule like college does, but the amount of times that people hit heads in football, I'm just noticing it more. It's all the time, and especially the NFL. I mean, those running backs, they just lead with their head and they just go. And I know they don't have the targeting, but if you want to start calling head shots, then let's start calling head shots. I don't care if it's quarterback, anything. If you're going to call head shots, let's call head shots. That's my argument with football right now. If you don't want to call them, don't call them. I'm okay with that too. But if we're going to call them, let's call them on everybody. And yes, Mahomes is the number 1 guy, but when Lamar runs, he gets hit. It's not a penalty. When Josh Allen runs, he doesn't get the penalties. Mahomes is really no different than them, except for just the name. And it's becoming a situation, and the NFL overall doesn't want it. They want Mahomes, and I understand that the NFL can't have all the quarterbacks out. They have to have their guys in, or it doesn't work. But it's becoming an issue, and it's becoming almost funny and just too much of a joke for it to be not a little bit real.
Yeah, the NFL knows what's going on. They see it. It's a little over the top. So I'll be interested to see how they call the Chiefs and the Bills game, if they're going to let a lot of stuff go or if it's going to be call after call for both sides. Hopefully it's an evenly called game. I mean, that's what we all want. Right. And you're right. There is a lot of helmet dropping in football, especially the NFL. The running backs are the last position that they aren't protected anymore. And I think a lot of it's tough for defenders because you're not supposed to go helmet to helmet, but you don't want to go with people's knees either.
Right.
And it makes tackling a little bit difficult, especially when it's bang, bang or it's a speed play. So I've noticed that too. You do see a lot of helmets dropping more than you'd like to see, just because obviously that's dangerous for the player dropping the helmet and all those type of things. But I've kind of noticed that too. It seems like there is a lot more just the helmet drops.
And I do think you made the point that I think the players have made a conscious effort with the technology, the helmet and everything. They would rather hit each other in the head than take out someone's knee, because that's, I mean, I do think that they are just they do not want that soft tissue injuries, because those are just so tough. And that ends your career more than a headshot, unfortunately. You tear your knee up bad, sometimes you are never the same.
Yeah, thankfully, I mean, ACLs, MCLs, they're not as bad as they used to be. They used to be if you tore your ACL, I mean, you, especially a running back or receiver, you didn't know if you were coming back. Guys are coming back a lot better now than they used to, but it still is. I mean, you're still out an extended period of time, and in some cases, some guys are never the same. So yeah, I think a lot of players would just rather go high to low, and if it's helmet to helmet, so be it. But at least they're not taking someone's knee out that they know or ending their season for 6, 8, 10 months.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you look at Tank, the Houston receiver that got hurt there in Kansas City week 16, 17, whatever it was. I mean, he tore it all, and it's going to be a while. And if he ever comes back the same, it could be, I'll question it, the way he tore all that up. And that wasn't even that was just an accident. Mm-hmm. His own guy got him, and that's unfortunate. But that's what happens when helmets hit legs. And when helmets hit helmets, you don't get that.
Yeah, it's tough for defenders. College, I hate the college rules too. I hate that guys get kicked out for a game because college. Some of these guys, their careers are pretty short. I mean, missing a game, could be 1/10 of their season. They play 11 or 12 games, but you get the point. I mean, missing an entire game is a big deal. So yeah, I don't like that college does that, but the NFL, getting back to Mahomes, they're hearing it, they see everything. So like I said, I'd be interested to see how they call this next game for the Chiefs and Bills.
I think there's going to be some changes. There has to be, because it's now. The problem too is everybody's becoming so much smarter. Where you have the Kenny Pickett rule, where remember when he was in college and went to slide, and then didn't, and that's wrong too. I mean, I understand what he was doing, and it's a great play, and I love it. But if you're going to kick kids out and you're going to give them a penalty for every little hit, then once you start or initiate, you're giving it up. You cannot let him get back in and get 3 more yards or 5 more yards or whatever.
Yeah, Mahomes has taken advantage of that the past couple of years, where he'll run to the sideline, he'll hold the ball out like he does, or do any of these crazy stuff that he does, and then he'll cut it back and get 5, 8 extra yards. And it's smart on him. I don't blame him. I mean, he can get away with it. He should. I don't blame the guy. But it's just another obstacle that makes it tough for people to play defense nowadays.
I mean, every rule is just against the defense, and that's what we want as viewers. It's what, and who was I listening to? And they were just saying that defensive coaches who was it? I can't remember who I was listening to. That's why defensive coaches in today's world have a hard time being a head coach, because they live in a different world than offense. They don't understand, just what it takes, and they just can't relate with the offense as well as an offensive guy can relate with defense for some reason better. And unfortunately, growing up as a defensive, I mean, I think it was Brady and Gronk said that, Belichick didn't have any clue what was going on offense. No clue. If people asked him, he would not have known anything they were doing. It was McDaniels and Bill O'Brien, and obviously different guys through the years. But when you have 2 of the best at their position ever saying that their best head coach ever didn't have a clue what they were doing on offense, that's telling that defensive guys just have a hard time switching over to offense. And I understand it. The offensive language and what those guys learn every week and every playbook and every offensive coordinator, it is a foreign language. It truly is. And that's why you find some coaches that just, that backup or that third string guy just goes with a coach. He at least knows it and he can help the other guys. And he's learned that language. And I mean, I would say Seneca Wallace was a little bit like that with Mike Holmgren. He must have known it. He was very versatile. He could help people out, and he just followed him from Seattle to Green Bay to Cleveland. I mean, he just went with him everywhere he was.
Yeah, with Belichick, there's a lot of stories that, he wasn't involved with the offense, which is fine. I mean, it worked.
Yeah.
It worked for a lot of years, and then his drafting toward the end wasn't very good, especially on the offensive skill position players. But yeah, defense is tough because defense is about flying around, pursuit and tackle, flying around, pursuit and tackle. The basics. Offense is a little bit more choreographed. You got people cutting off routes here and there. You got blocking assignments. Defense is a lot of just blowing stuff up for the most part. I know it's a little more complicated than that, but yeah, there is a little barrier there, which can make it kind of tough. But like I said, hopefully the NFL. I just hope there isn't a bunch of terrible calls in this Bills and Chiefs game. That nobody wants to see that.